In this lesson, we're going to create our own word cloud. Also, I'll show you how to get hold of entire novels through the NLTK resources. Let's add a quick little section heading here with a markdown cell that reads, creating a word cloud. Now, whenever you're using an unknown package or a new package that you haven't seen before, it's always a good idea to pull up the documentation of this package. In our case, the package that we're going to be using is called Word Cloud, and it was originally made by a chap called Andreas Müller, but since then, he's had approximately 33 people contribute and improve and add their work to make this package better. As you can see, the entire code base is up on GitHub for anybody to look at, and there's some basic instructions here as well, but the more detailed API documentation can be found here. On this website, you can see a bit more information on how to use the word cloud, as well as some more examples. I've added the links to both these sites into the lesson resources. So without further ado, let's get started with a basic example. Now, having downloaded and installed the package in the previous lesson, it's time to add it to our notebook imports. So here we can say from word cloud, import word cloud. Let's hit Shift Enter and scroll all the way down. Now we're going to be using that example email again to generate our first word cloud. The way to do it is to use word cloud parentheses dot and then the generate method parentheses, and then we just have to supply the piece of text that we'd like to use to generate the word cloud from. So in our case, it was the email body. I'm going to actually save this in a variable called word cloud. So I'll say word underscore cloud is equal to word cloud parentheses dot generate parentheses email body. This is step one. Now matplotlib is going to come into play. So matplotlib was stored inside a variable called plt, and here we're going to use the imshow method. Imshow parentheses, and we're going to supply, well, you guessed it, we're going to supply our word cloud to imshow. And now let's use plt.show and see what we get. We get something like this. Now, I don't know about you, but I can see we can make some improvements on this right away. The quality isn't that great. The letters look a little bit jagged, and we've got these axes on both sides, on the X and the Y. These axes are really easy to remove, actually. If we use plt.axis, parentheses, and then single quotes with the string off, and hit Shift Enter, the axes disappear. But we still kind of have these jagged edges on some of these letters. It doesn't look that clean. So what we can do is come up to the imshow method, put in a comma after the word cloud, and add an additional argument here. This one's going to be called interpolation. And we can set that equal to some sort of value, right? At first, we had a default value for interpolation, which was none. So there was no interpolation going on. But we can do some interpolation to smooth out these edges. I'm going to go with bilinear. And now we have a much cleaner picture. Of course, the only reason I know to set interpolation to bilinear is because I've had a look at the quick documentation here, and I scrolled down to the interpolation parameter, and I've tried out a couple of these. So there is quite a big number to choose from. The default is none, but I did find that I could get some improvement in the look of my word cloud by playing around with this, and I found that bilinear works well for me. Now I think as a minimalist basic example, this works really, really well. And you'll find something very, very similar on the documentation page actually. So let's take this to the next level. Let's make this a little bit more interesting. To make our next word clouds a little bit more interesting, I want to show you how to download an entire novel from the Natural Language Toolkit. NLTK actually has a whole bunch of resources that we can use. If we go back up to where we were downloading our tokenizer and our stop words, you'll recall both of these were downloaded to the nltk_data folder on our hard drive. All we need to do is add 2 additional lines of code here, namely nltk.download, parentheses, single quotes, Gutenberg, and nltk.download, parentheses, single quotes, Shakespeare. If I hit Shift Enter on the cell, it will download some additional corpora for us that we can make use of in our word cloud. Check it out. So it got the zip files and it unzipped them, and here they are in my corpora folder. I've got Shakespeare right here with a number of his plays, including Hamlet, Julius Caesar, Macbeth, and so on. I think R and J stands for Romeo and Juliet, another classic. And Gutenberg has also a whole bunch of books. So you can read these for free if you like. This one here looks like Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. There we go, opening them up in my Atom text editor. I can see the whole text of the entire novel nicely formatted. The one we're going to use is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. If you actually wanted to read this book, you have to scroll down quite a bit past all the acknowledgements and praises and so on to eventually chapter 1, which is on line 500 with the famous opening sentences. But okay, so far so good. Now we've got access to the text of a whole bunch of novels. Now it's up to us to put these into a word cloud. So I'm going to insert a few more cells at the bottom of our notebook, and I'm going to get hold of one of these works. The way I'm going to get hold of one of these is like this. I'm going to have to go nltk dot corpus dot Gutenberg dot words. So in this case, I'm getting a hold of one of the text files in the Gutenberg folder. The one I'm interested in is going to be Moby Dick. So I'll have single quotes in the parentheses, and I'll type out the exact spelling of this text file. So it's Melville-Moby_Dick.txt. I'm including the file extension. The string that I'm passing into my words method here has to match this file name exactly. Now I'm going to create a variable called example_corpus. And that's where I'm going to store my Moby Dick novel. If you're wondering how many words are in this entire novel, by the way, you can pull that up with the built-in length function, len, parentheses, example corpus. Let's see how much work was put into Moby Dick. It's not War and Peace, but 260,000 words is still no slouch. Now, another thing that might be quite interesting actually is to see what type of variable, what type of object we're dealing with. So in this case, our example corpus is something called a stream-backed corpus view. The reason I'm drawing attention to this is because you might be forgiven for thinking that what you're getting back here is just a big long string, but you're actually dealing with a different kind of object here. This thing that we're working with actually has a whole bunch of tokens. If you wanted to get the list of words, you have to kind of join them together. You have to join all the tokens together. Let me show you what I mean. The first thing I'll do is I'm going to create a list. I'm going to call it word_list and set that equal to square brackets. And then inside these square brackets, I'm going to use Python's list comprehension to join all the tokens together. So it'll be 2 single quotes, then dot, join, parentheses, word, and yeah, you guessed it, there's a loop coming, for word in example corpus. This here will join all of our words together. So if you're wondering what this looked like before, example corpus shift enter looks like so. And the word list that I'm getting after running my list comprehension and joining all the words together will look like so. Very similar looking, I know. But remember, we're going from tokens to a list of words, which we can then use to join together into a single string. So if I say novel underscore as underscore string is equal to, and then single quotes with a space inside, dot join, parentheses, word list. This here will actually take all the words out of the list and put them into a single string. So novel as string will look like so. Now, if you're wondering why we're going through this trouble, it's because we have to do some pre-processing to feed our text into our word cloud. Remember, this generate function here is kind of expecting a very simple string to build the word cloud from. We can't give it a corpus straight out of the NLTK toolkit. And I also don't want to give it a list of tokens or a list of individual words. I'm planning to give my word cloud a simple string. So why don't we try it out for now? I'm going to copy this, come down here, paste it in. Instead of having email body inside my generate method, I'm going to have novel as string and see what we get. Fantastic. So that's working. We've successfully extracted all the words from a corpus in the NLTK resources and fed them into our word cloud package. Now all we have to do is make this thing look a bit better and style it. I'm planning to arrange all these words into the shape of a whale. Let's see if we can do this.